Hi, everyone. Welcome to the candidate live stream with the New Jersey Libertarian Party. We go live at least every Thursday at 6:30, and if the candidates are available on Wednesdays and Fridays, we also go live on those days. If you have any questions for the party or the candidates, you can put it in the chat, or you can email me, send me a message. Any of these options are fine. I'm your host, Lana Leguía. I'm also running for District 24 State Assembly, and Vic Kaplan's here, who's running for New Jersey Governor. His lieutenant governor, Bruno Pereira, cannot make it tonight, and Dustin Maggard, who is a write-in candidate in District 8, is also working tonight, so he can't make it. Hopefully, they'll be here this weekend. So, Vic, you had some events last weekend. You're doing your county tour. You're going to visit all 21 counties. How did that go last weekend?
Well, thank you, Lana, for that introduction. I think it went well. I mean, we met people who supported me throughout these events, and it was nice that I made myself available, I think, for other people to meet me. So, and they had any questions, they could meet me in those locations. I think that was wonderful, and there were, individuals who did have questions for me, and I did answer them. So, I think it's great to make myself available, like I said, for people throughout the state, so they can meet me and talk to me. I make myself available for other people, and yes, I am on the course to visit all 21 counties. That is the plan. So I should be done, I think, with about 14 or 15 by the end of the week. So there'll probably be about 6 more to go before the election. So that is the plan. And people who want to meet with me and would like to ask me questions, they're more than welcome to attend these events as they have done in the past.
I've also noticed in helping other campaigns and running for office and helping with your campaign that people don't realize how accessible some candidates are. I think they assume that they can't really talk to us, they can't email us, they can't schedule private one-on-one conversations. That they can't like candidates are somehow like equivalent to minor celebrities, that they're kind of unreachable. But as far as the libertarian candidates in New Jersey are concerned, we're very accessible. Vic has scheduled several Zooms with people who wanted one-on-one time with him. You can schedule calls with us. I've had people email me and text me. I'm not really sure how they got my number, but they've texted me and I've answered their questions that they had concerns over. If you don't want to go to an event or feel like you have to speak at a microphone. So I think that's interesting how we've created this environment just kind of as a country where we treat politicians and candidates like celebrities, and they're not. They're just normal people who live in your community.
Right. No, absolutely agree. And it's, we're just regular people. We're not, we're not celebrities. I mean, and just like I'm not, I'm not somebody who is like a congressperson, right? I mean, I'm just a regular person. And I also think that, a lot of times, not a lot of times, but sometimes what I do notice is that, there's people that, I mean, there's always going to be, supporters, and there are people who are not going to. There are people going to be haters, of course. But I always thought about this before as well, is that underneath each person, underneath each candidate, there is a person there, right? There's a person who does all the things that regular people do. Yes, I know that some people have profited off their seats, like became millionaires from positions that, based on their salaries, should not have turned them into millionaires. And this is when people start asking questions. But like if you're talking about people elected to local office, there's plenty of people that, it's just regular people, and those individuals that have hatred towards them because they belong to a specific political party. Yeah, I think that's just wrong. And I've always opposed this, hating people for reasons. It's one thing to disagree with a person on issues, but just the hate that some people have towards others. I wish there was, more of the toning down of that, is hating the person based on that person's political affiliation. So
Yeah, absolutely. I've noticed being a woman in this sort of arena, that a woman's physical appearance, both if she's maybe not stereotypically attractive, but also when she is stereotypically attractive or conventionally attractive, it doesn't matter. You lose both ways. They will say something about your physical appearance. And you're right, there are real people with families and children, and they go to the school drop off every morning, and they're regular people. But aside from that, they are also fallible, right? We treat, especially the higher seats like president, governor, we treat these people like they're equivalent to deities for some reason, and everything they say is gold, and they can do no wrong. They can make no mistakes, and they can't have bigotry or bias because they are in the position that they are. So it can kind of go both ways, where we forget that they are human beings and have feelings and families that deserve protections. I've actually seen people say when politicians get doxxed or judges get doxxed that, well, they decided to go into the public eye. This is their fault. No, they are people just like you are, and American citizens just like you are, and they have the same rights and protections that you're, you have the privilege of having. So I don't understand that. So we can go down an avenue of totally dehumanizing politicians, but then we also can go in the opposite direction of, pedestalizing them for some reason.
Right. No, I totally agree with you a lot. I mean, when I was growing up, I guess I did have more of like that feeling towards. I mean, I was look, I was 12 years old, and I remember I saw the governor of New Jersey. It was like, wow, it's like no, and I totally, yeah. When you're a kid, you sort of like you see a former guy. I mean, I had the same reaction when I met Jimmy Carter. Right. It's like, wow. Right. It's like it's understandable to have that feeling when you're a child towards people who are in positions of power. You're like, oh wow, yeah, because you're right, it is kind of like the outlook of a celebrity. So you sort of like, because obviously as I was a kid, but as I grew older, I learned more about Jimmy Carter. I wasn't exactly seeing him as a sort of this god, right? It's like, oh wow, you're this, you're president of the United States. So I think well, for a number, like for me, it's certainly that kind of attitude that disappear with age, so to speak. As I learned more about these individuals, I certainly stopped treating them as sort of gods. I know they're not, of course, but when you're young, when you're very young, you don't know any better, so you kind of look at them as it's like, oh wow, this person is governor and this person is. But yeah, I agree, they're human. They're human. They're not gods. And I stopped. And actually, like whatever I was learning in school, I remember I had a different perspective towards our quote unquote founding fathers as well, because I didn't think that they were, well, obviously they were not perfect, but sometimes people tend to venerate people who are historical figures, certainly venerate them. People are in power. I think it's especially true when it came to like Abraham Lincoln. We certainly do know what he did during the Civil War, and so some of that like veneration that maybe we've had as kids. Think that some of us, as we grow older, we learn more about these individuals when they were presidents and did hold other offices. We start having different views. Our views do change about them. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's certain philosophers and people in history that, we quote all the time, and then you learn that they were terrible to their families or their children, or they were just menaces to society in general, or they were racist, or they were misogynistic or whatever. And, it doesn't mean that the good things that they did weren't good. It just means that they were human. Right. And, when we have this admiration for power, of course, as libertarians, our ultimate goal is to make it so people working in government positions don't have enough power to even admire. But we do have two headlines this week, last couple of days, about kind of people who are in politics that, don't deserve admiration simply because they're in politics. And one of them is, now I didn't read too much into this. I kind of saw the headline, the first couple of paragraphs, and I was like, okay, yeah. Is the message leaks from I think they're a conservative group, maybe a Republican group. Do you know the details a bit more over that?
Yeah. Sorry. Right. No, I do. They're called they're a Young Republican group. It's a Young Republican National. It's Kansas Young Republican Group. So you have a Young Republican National Federation, and this specific group was the Kansas Young Republican Group. And so basically there were like 2,900 pages of leaked chats from a Telegram group chat, and which involved the leaders of this young Republican group, and they just included kind of a racist language, and it was offensive. I mean, I'm not going to repeat it, obviously, but let's just say it was very, very insulting and very. I'm not. I mean, anyone who wants to kind of read about it, they can do that. I'm certainly not going to repeat the language that was used. I guess I'm not too surprised. I mean, I've heard adults say similar things, so I'm not surprised that adults, older people. I mean, they're still, they're young Republicans, but I've certainly had older people say worse things or similar things. And yeah, that is very unfortunate. That is very unfortunate. I don't think that this is, I don't think this is so rare. I mean, the things that people say between each other, that's the thing, right? I mean, people wouldn't be saying that in public, but behind closed doors, right? People do say some crazy things to each other. So I guess it's always been a question for some people whether that's the norm or that whether because there are people who think those things and don't say them, and there are people who say them and don't really care. I certainly think in the last, I would say, decade, people just became more open about saying things they probably would not have otherwise said before. I just find that unfortunate. On the other hand, I do think that there's an argument to be made that and I've heard this. People say this actually before that time period, is that if somebody's a racist, I'd rather have that person say it to my face instead of trying to hide, right, that person's thoughts. Just let the people say those things, right, if that's what they believe in. And I guess there's something to be said about it. Nevertheless, I don't feel great about it. I do think I do think that it's unfortunate that more of this type of language is being used. On the other hand, people are using that language. We certainly know who they are and what they believe in. So that's, as bad as it is, I think certainly that's something that can be said about it that's positive. Nevertheless, I have been definitely disturbed by the increase of that type of language in the last decade. I mean, that is very unfortunate. And there's definitely been an increase, and whether there's been an increase because more people believe that way or more people are open about their thoughts. Nevertheless, that is a dangerous phenomenon, and I do think that it should be confronted. I mean, people, I don't think it's something that should be ignored. When people use that kind of language, because someone might say, well, that's just freedom of speech and it doesn't matter what people say. And I do think it does matter. I mean, I don't think that the increase of that type of language, of the use of the type of language, really certainly doesn't help our society. It just the only thing it does, it helps to divide our society and turn people against each other. And that's what I wanted to say about that.
Yeah, I didn't read too deep into the details of like how the messages got leaked and the details like that, but I did read some of the actual messages, and it's not mild at all. Yeah. It is very dehumanizing and violent rhetoric, and so it is it is severe. And I agree with you that if someone's going to be racist or misogynistic, I'd rather you be honest with me so I can avoid you. But the thing with this is that if these are young Republicans, presumably going into the political sphere as they grow in their careers, they're going to be in charge of our livelihoods and potentially who has rights and who doesn't. So if you can dehumanize somebody as a joke, or when you think no one is listening to you, what legislation are you supporting? Because I can tell you that I have never said any of those things, even in my mind. I've never said it in private. I've never said it to my closest friend, my husband, whatever. I've never said those things. I've never thought them. So the fact that not only did they think those things, but they felt comfortable enough in this, I assume, fairly large chat to express these opinions. And on top of that, they want to get into politics, which is going to greatly affect people's lives and for generations going to affect people. Should we be concerned that this is the new generation of Republicans?
Right, no, Lana, I agree. Yeah, if they were just regular people, that's one thing. You're right. The fact that these guys are, are in the group that they're in, I mean, that certainly should be something of concern. I mean, I agree with that. I mean, they're just regular people. I mean, it would be bad enough if they were just regular people, because I think that's, yes, they would be growing up, and that's certainly not something to be liked for sure. I mean, and they did say some really horrible things. I mean, they weren't just like, they were. They would. I agree. They were not mild for sure. And the fact that they're going to be in position of power. Yeah, I mean, would that mean? Well, like how would that manifest itself when it comes to policies? I mean, there's definitely been an increase in white nationalism in the last decade. I mean, I can definitely see that, and I just find this absolutely disturbing. And this is something that should be a topic of a conversation. And I totally agree. I mean, because these people are, where they are. I mean, that's definitely something that should be discussed. I wish that there was more of sort of not just ignoring the topic, but there would be more of sort of a critique coming from other people when we've had this type of language. Well, not as severe as this, but milder language being used in the last decade, and I wish there was more of confronting of it. But I think that the problem is, of course, it has now come to a point where people just see things through partisan prisms, and it really shouldn't be. It should, like, these things should not be seen through partisan prisms. Like, we know that racism is wrong. There's no reason why this topic should be seen through the prisms of partisanship. It really shouldn't be. I mean, people should be able to condemn the use of racism when it comes to any type of top. I mean, this is just such blatant and violent racism that it should be condemned. There's no doubt about it, and there have been condemnations. And I think that's great. I think the problem is that part of that language has been normalized in the last decade. That people have said those things, and it just hasn't been the focus of much greater pushback, which I wish would have taken place coming from some of the national media. I wish there was more of a pushback, because it doesn't seem to be easing this type of language. It seems to be spreading. Whether people are more open about saying those things where they did not say them before, or there's actually more people believing that, I do believe it's a problem. I definitely believe it's a problem, and I think it should be confronted. Like, I'm not, it's really unfortunate, because we have gone through similar time periods in our history, and I thought that we were supposed to be a more kind of tolerant society, but I do see an increase in that type of language, and I don't think that we're progressing. I think in some ways we unfortunately may be regressing. I just think there needs to be more pushback and more people confronting the use of that type of language, especially when it comes to people who are in the political sphere that they're in.
Yeah, and I do find it interesting that, right, I don't like using the left-right kind of language, but that's what the media uses, that's what the general population uses, and the right has kind of positioned themselves as morally superior to the left. The left is violent. They burn cities down when they protest, etc. To the point where they've now labeled Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization, and they kind of just label anyone who looks like they might be on the left side of things as Antifa, and therefore a domestic terrorist. But then we have this, and then we had Charlie Kirk, who was assassinated, and they were using that as like kind of like the linchpin of their position of like, yes, the left is violent, and they don't like when people say things that they find to be hurtful or whatever, and free speech. But then this comes out, and it kind of solidifies, or I guess validates, people on the left who think the right is also violent, and violently racist and misogynistic, and will support legislation that will take their rights away or take the rights away of people that they're bigoted towards. But the truth is that there is no left or right, and it's just kind of a human thing to be violently tribalistic like that. And it's something that you have to choose every single day to fight against that natural instinct to be tribalistic and violent. I do think that humans just kind of naturally want to be part of a tribe and want to be accepted in whatever community that they're in, whether that's part of their identity or just their family or church or whatever, or in this case, politics. And you have to fight that every person is an individual, and you can't judge people based on these identity markers and just pigeonhole them based on, oh, they like, people do this to me all the time. You have a nose ring, leftist, communist, Democrat, whatever, and then they just assume I'm violent and all these other things simply because I, put some metal in my nose, right? Things like that. So, but what's interesting is that now we also have, particularly in New Jersey, and you and I have both made statements on this, we have legislation in the assembly that sound like it's going towards criminalizing speech. So I feel like no matter what direction we go, we take it way too far. We go towards criminalizing speech, and then we just swing in the opposite direction towards criminalizing or allowing people to say whatever they want without any sort of repercussion, at least societally, not criminalized it, but societally we just let people say and do whatever they want. So it's very frustrating.
Right. No, I totally agree with you, Lana, and I think that it's fine to have free speech. I mean, I support free speech, but at the same time, as people express their free speech, it's absolutely okay for other people to say they don't agree with it and for them to condemn it. It's just because a person has free speech doesn't mean there are no consequences to expressing that free speech, right? If somebody, and it's not a crime, certainly in the United States, right? Somebody denies the Holocaust, that is not a crime in the United States. That is covered by the First Amendment. That is the expression of free speech. And so, if somebody says something that one finds offensive, there's a way to confront it, right? There's a way to deal with it and to condemn someone for expressing their free speech. It's okay to disagree. It's not, the free speech doesn't give one the right sort of not to have any consequences to their exercise of free speech, right? So, but I do agree. It's not a left or right thing. I mean, there are people on both sides. You see people on both sides who want to criminalize the exercise of free speech. They only think that, the speech I don't agree with should be criminalized, regardless of which side it's coming from. So someone is kind of wants to associate with one group of people. They don't think that people should be expressing free speech that they find disagreeable, and vice versa. So it's unfortunately, it is on both sides. Something you mentioned earlier, I mean, not to switch off topics, but you're right about women being perceived differently than men when it comes to politics. Unfortunately, that is the case, and I do apologize. I'm kind of switching back to an earlier topic, but it is true. I mean, this has been noted, in the past, in the last few decades. I mean, in the 80s and 90s, where fewer women did run for political office, but they were even more so than today. I mean, in the past, they were severely critiqued for the type of clothing they were wearing. If a woman was shedding tears, a woman was shedding a tear. That Patricia Schroeder did that, I believe, in Congresswoman from Colorado. She was criticized for that, right? A man, sheds a tear that would be, that was kind of looked at differently. But I mean, in terms of clothing, yes, I do remember reading articles about how a particular female public official would be critiqued for the clothing that she would be wearing, or like no one would be talking about how a male public official, how that person is wearing what type of clothing. No one would be, unless the person was like some kind of a had like some kind of an amazing outfit, right, that really stood out. Nobody does that. So you're right, and people do judge women based on their looks. I mean, we've seen this happen. I remember this happening throughout the 90s, and this was probably today this would be, I mean, on a kind of official, more sort of a level would be seen as less appropriate. But I certainly remember in the 90s, but that was happening all the time. And that's just, yeah, it's quite unfortunate that women certainly do have to deal with things that men don't deal with. That's for sure.
Yes, I definitely experienced this, not just because I run for office and I work within the liberty sphere, but just like in my day-to-day life. I will say that I remember when Obama was criticized for wearing a certain color suit once. I seem to remember there was a big deal about that. And men crying in general is seen as like emasculating or weak. But
Yeah.
the difference is that, for one, it happens much more often to women. But with women, it's not so much the clothing that you wear, but what your body looks like in the clothing, right? So it's not so much the critique of the fashion choice, but what your body looks like. So if you're unattractive, or overweight, you're going to be criticized, not taken seriously. Anything you say is now dismissed because how dare you be overweight? Or the opposite could happen, and you could be very, very conventionally attractive or have a curvy body that people find attractive, and you will still be dismissed and not taken seriously because you have too much sex appeal, right? So you lose either way. You lose if you're unattractive, and you lose if you're attractive. And the truth is that people just tend to have a bias towards women and not taking them seriously, because they're women. And the complaint is that we're too emotional and we shouldn't be in politics. In fact, this just happened. I forget what day, but Trump was at a press conference, and a reporter asked him a very serious question about his action. I don't remember what the exact question was, but it had to do with something on an international level. And you could see him staring at her in a very particular way, the way men stare at women that they find attractive. And he was like, I like watching her speak. Good job, honey. He literally said that, and then totally dismissed her. Didn't even answer her question, and went on to another reporter's question. So we didn't see the reporter's face, and we don't need to. But he apparently found her attractive, enjoyed watching her speak, and then completely dismissed her because he found her attractive. And it goes down to this misogynistic ideal that for a man, if you're attracted to something, you can't also respect it. You can't respect things that you're sexually attracted to, which is obviously untrue, but we see it every day. So.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think there's definitely less misogynism than there was in the 70s, for example, or the 80s.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely been progress, but it's still there. And like you said,
I agree, it's still there. I mean, there's definitely less. I'm saying, like, it's better than it was during that time. I mean, clearly there's still, that still exists. Like, it's not, just talking about the news media, right? I mean, there were very few female reporters in the 1970s, right? There was one that, but yeah, it's. I mean, that comedy Anchorman, and I mean, it is based on sort of the real kind of a life observances of women, female reporters in the media, in the 1970s. So there's definitely less misogynism, but yeah, I do agree that it's still there, of course. But we have certainly have come a long way from that period of time, because that was, I mean, women couldn't even have credit cards to their names. I mean, until 1974. I mean, they had to, before that they had to have their husbands co-sign the credit cards. I mean, people may not realize that that this really wasn't such a long time ago, really. So.
Yes, and the people who were alive then with these types of laws and policies are still alive now, and they're voting and they're interacting with the public and they're running for office, right? So it definitely is still there, though I can't deny that things are definitely a lot better. But like you mentioned earlier, Christian nationalism is growing in popularity and gaining momentum in a scary way. And with Christian nationalism also comes the idea that women need to be home making babies. They don't need to be in politics. They don't need to be working. They don't need to be getting an education, which is which doesn't make sense, because in the same breath they'll say that women need to raise the children and teach them, but then you don't want women to be educated. So how are they educating children if they're themselves are not educated? It doesn't make any sense. But that is what's happening, on top of a lot of bodily autonomy rights being under threat. So it's definitely looking like we're going backwards in a lot of ways when it comes to racism and misogyny and just violence in general. Whether it's coming from the right or the left, it's there.
Right, and then you're right. I do agree with what you said, and yeah, I do find it to be very unfortunate, because I was hoping that we kind of just well, I mean, history is cyclical. I mean, of course, I was fully aware of that, but the idea that we're just kind of, would be regressing on any of these or multiple levels, I think, yeah, that's quite unfortunate. And I'm sure that people who try to justify it, they would say, well, this is just pushback on from what's happening on the other side. But this is well, I mean, if I can't even say, well, I can understand if pushback was like, okay, there's a bit of a disagreement, or it's just going into the kind of the extreme, right? I mean, it's like, it's almost like where, like, some of these people, like, they came from the 1950s or something. I mean, it does seems like it's it's one thing, like, to go, okay, like, there's something I disagree with, but no, like, it does seem like you mentioned, you talk about, yeah, the woman's responsibility is just to raise kids, to be a housewife. It's like the feminine mystique, Betty Friedan, the women's liberation movement of the 19, right, the 60s, the 70s, yeah, like, it never happened, and we're just, these people, they just want to go back, before, like, into the 1950s, which is crazy. I think not crazy. I mean, I think it'll be completely horrible if we ever did go back to that period of time.
Yeah, and we also tend to romanticize the past. I've heard way too many people say women were happy and women chose to stay home. No, they didn't. Or like when we talk about divorce rates, they were only there. The divorce rates only are the way, or were the way they were in 1950s or 60s, because women really didn't have any other choice. Their avenue for survival in society depended on being legally attached to a man, no matter how he treated her. So this romanticization of the past, that's not even that far away. I mean, it was only 70 years ago. It's not that far away. Is insane. I also think there's this weird feeling of wanting revenge from some people. Like, I know, 10 years ago, people were canceling each other for saying very, very mild things, or we were canceling people who were in their 40s who said something when they were 13, things like that were getting way out of hand, and people were losing their businesses, and people were trying to force people to be accepting of things that maybe they just didn't because of their religion or whatever. And now we've swung in the other direction. Like, I just read about this guy who was bragging about calling ICE on an international student who was here on a student visa, and I guess it expired and she didn't realize it. And she had tweeted something about Charlie Kirk, the internet equivalent of dancing on his grave, basically. And he called ICE on her, and they took her away, and she's gone now. And he's bragging about it. So there's some people that really feel like they're out for revenge, and I never understand that, because, like, especially when it comes to free speech, I have always defended free speech, even hate speech, even speech I don't like these podcasters that say horrible things about women, horrible, violent things about women. I will still defend their right to say it, out loud, or have their stupid red pill podcast. That's fine. You're allowed to have that, right? And so I don't understand this feeling of wanting revenge and retaliation for, the last 10 years. I don't understand that.
Yeah, no, I don't either. I mean, I understand. I think that basically what they want to do, and this seems to be us turning into this whole atmosphere where, let's use the power of government to, let's come to power, and then let's use the power of government to go after people that were doing all these terrible things to us. And, we're trying to cancel people, right? Have censorship, so let's have censorship against them. I mean, this is really turning into kind of a the idea of using the state power to force And I don't think it's just revenge. I think it forced their values on everybody else. I mean, I think this is why people are just so adamant about, this whole fear. Well, what if the other side comes to power? Then it will be the end of the world. This is this kind of attitude is much stronger today than I ever remember. I mean, this is basically now the very, very unfortunate, and because they always, they campaign like they're for free speech, and once they get to power, they're just like, well, let's censor this group, censor that group, and then of course that group, I mean, the people that support that group, they feel like they need to seek revenge. So then their view is that, well, let's get power, let's have power so that we can seek revenge against the other side that was censoring us. So then, so they try to limit their free speech. I mean, it's kind of like tit for tat, and I think it's very unfortunate. I think everyone's right to free speech should be protected. No, I think it's absolutely okay for people to disagree with what other people say. Even like KKK, I've said it the last podcast, that there's a way to deal with it. The way it was dealt in 70s, 80s, give them the microphone, allow them to say whatever they want to say, and then that's that. But don't try to limit their free speech, because they're going to use that for their benefit. They try to say, hey, we're being victimized, we're being denied the right to express our opinions. So, so let's, they would portray themselves as victims. So the comment that was just made by LeBron, Republicans and Democrats always seem to be pro-free speech when they are not the ones in power. Oh, absolutely, 100%, right? Isn't that what we heard last year, right? That the Democrats are against free speech. The Democrats have put censorship, yada, yada, yada. And of course, when the other side comes to power, it's like, well, they do this, right? They do the same thing, right? They restrict free speech. And they say it's normal, it's okay, because they say, well, I don't think these people should have a right to express themselves. Well, isn't that a little hypocritical? Because you're arguing that your free speech rights were, like the right of other people were to express themselves, that way was restricted, but now you're saying that you want the rights of other people to be restricted as well. Like, isn't that a little hypocritical? But yeah, that's exactly what it is. They none of them actually believe in free speech, except for the people that do. But those are not the people that are applauding while the free speech of others are being restricted. So
yeah, we also see examples of both sides, Democrats and Republicans, saying that they support constitutionally protected rights, and then they get into power and they absolutely don't. Like, we see people who are cheering on due process just going right out the window, so that's why you need to, the quicker people realize that voting for a Democrat or Republican is not in their best interest, and they historically have not solved any problems, they get into power and just go on this 4-year, or in the case of Congress, 2-year petty revenge tirade. And then, speaking of people who claim one thing and another, and before we move on to the next topic, because we're about halfway through, if anyone has any questions, you can put it in the comments. You can also just comment your thoughts. You can also email me or message us. Even if you're watching this after we've already gone live, we'll just answer your question in the next live stream. And we are going live again tomorrow at 6:30. So Mikey Sherrill, one of your opponents, kind of has positioned herself as morally superior as well, and she's there to help the people, and she's pro-worker and pro-minority and pro all these things. And during the debate, which I still haven't watched all the way through, these debates, the last couple of years, I don't know, I want to say the last 5 or 6 years, the debates either, at an assembly level, Congress, president, whatever, it's just really hard to sit and watch through because they don't actually say anything. They just kind of attack each other. And it's just, I don't want to sit and listen to that for 2.5 hours. Anyways, during the debate, Mikey Sherrill said to accusing Jack of this, you killed tens of thousands of people by printing your misinformation, your propaganda, and then getting paid to develop an app so that people get more easily get the opioids once they were addicted, Sherrill alleged. But according to this, Mikey Sherrill took $17,000 from Johnson & Johnson, $4,500 from Teva Pharmaceuticals, 3,000 from Amerisource Bergen, and 1,000 from Endo Pharmaceuticals, which are all tied to the opioid epidemic. So she's accusing him of taking bribes essentially from the same people that she has taken bribes from. So what are your thoughts on that, Vic?
Well, I'm not really surprised. I mean, the only reason why people would be accepting money from these companies, these corporations, is because these corporations expect something back from them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be giving them money. I mean, what would be the point, right? And so, like, I honestly believe that I'm against any type of corporate welfare. Well, of course, I'm against any type of corporate welfare, the use of taxpayers' dollars to benefit corporations. At the same time, I do believe that, no, it is true. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, thank you for that, LeBron. Yes, I mean, you can take a look at the FEC reports and you can see that. By the way, that's not unusual. I mean, they do give money to like Republicans and Democrats. Like this is not this is not surprising at all. And of course, they do want favorable treatment, right? When it comes to well, obviously these companies, Lana, that you mentioned, it's clear to see what the benefit for them would be on the federal level, right? When you're a sitting member of Congress. So I'm not surprised at that. I think the if one wants to kind of get rid of that, then the solution is really for the federal government to not being able to give anything back to them, right? So it wouldn't really matter, what company gives what. If there's no money available, right, that there's nothing to give back. So the and of course, I think if we did that, if there no money was available, right, then I think a lot of these corporations would be giving money in the first place. Like if you couldn't do anything for them, and I think that's ultimately the solution. I know that we've had on the federal level, we have all different campaign and finance laws, types of legislation in for decades, and there always were these loopholes. And of course, the reality is that the public officials do want to have corporations give them money. They do want to send them money so they, once elected, they'll do things for them. So it's not surprising that none of this legislation has actually achieved anything in terms of restricting like the ability to donate money. In fact, now with the soft money, right, those limits have been kind of lowered, and so there's actually been more possibility for the corporations to sort of benefit candidates for office, and once they're elected, to reward them back with kickbacks.
Yes, and I think it's really amazing that the NJ elect, which is the state level version of the FEC, and the NJ elect exists solely to make sure that fraud isn't happening with donations, for one, but also to make who is donating to who public. And it is public. Like, this is all stuff that, like, you can go on the NJ Elect site, look up my name or Vic's name, and our reports will pop up. You'll see what we're spending money on, who donated to us and how much, right? This is all very easy to find. It takes just a few minutes, and yet people don't use those tools to figure out who's corrupt and who isn't. And in New Jersey specifically, we have an entire assembly or entire legislator of corrupt politicians. We have a corrupt police system, and we just keep voting in more corrupt people. Mikey Sherrill here is pointing the finger at Jack. How dare you take money? Well, she's got her other hand behind her back, taking money from the same people, right? So if let's just say hypothetically, Vic, you had the opportunity to take, a 30,000 donation from one of these super PACs that was tied to a pharmaceutical company or something like that, would you take it?
No, of course not. I wouldn't take it, because they would expect me to do something for them, and I have no desire to do anything for them. I really don't. I don't support any kind of favorable treatment for corporations. I don't believe in any tax break for corporations. I don't believe in any corporate welfare. I don't believe that our tax dollars should be used to benefit one corporation or another. So I don't believe in any of that. So why would I? I mean, they wouldn't offer that money to me in the first place. Even let's say I was running as a Republican or a Democrat, no, I wouldn't be taking that money from them. And that's it, because I don't believe in benefiting any of them. I don't. And so, when it comes to libertarians, I know that, some people try to accuse us of like, oh, you just want to guys benefit the large corporation. Well, why are we, the large corporations are not giving us money? Where's all that money? I mean, we have nothing to offer to them because, I'm opposed to corporate welfare. I don't want to give them any tax breaks. I don't want to give them any favorable treatment. I don't believe in monopolies. So like, why would I, why would they offer me any money? And then why would I take it? They wouldn't offer me any money in the first place. Because they know that actually, if some of my proposals were implemented, they wouldn't be benefiting from them one bit, as opposed to the people that are running, where they do offer them money, and they know that once they get elected, if they get elected, they'll give them favorable treatment, which I'm completely 100% against. I don't believe that. First of all, giving a favorable treatment to large corporations is any corporations at all puts them at an unfair advantage, and that has nothing to do with what I stand for, which is that I think that everyone should be given having a fair shot. Everyone should be able to compete on an equal playing field. Well, obviously, if you're using tax dollars, which I'm totally against, to benefit a corporation, you're just giving them an undue advantage. And why would I ever support that? I think that's horrible, and I think that's wrong. I mean, how is it fair for the little mom and pop competitors who are trying to make a profit? You're just basically strangling them. Those the little people, right? With having the state choose winners and losers, and I'm totally against that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, we have these pharmaceutical companies, particularly the one that was mentioned, Johnson and Johnson, and Pfizer wasn't mentioned. I guess that she didn't take money from Pfizer, but Pfizer is another pharmaceutical company that have had just $1 billion lawsuits against a group of individuals or an individual, just lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit, and they just keep existing because, like you said, the government keeps bailing them out. And we have a government that has a war on drugs, so to speak, for the last 60, 70 years, and then they are bailing out these pharmaceutical companies that are hiding these same drugs, these same addictive substances in over-the-counter medication, and telling doctors that they're not addictive, and doctors just have been handing them out like candy, and people's lives have been ruined because we're told that doctors are there to help you and the government is there to help you, and why would they give you something that would hurt you? Well, because they make money off of it. They make money off of the time that they give it to you, and then when you get sick and get addicted, they make money off of that, and then they also make money off of pretending like they're trying to end the war on drugs,
Yeah.
and this is coming from two governor candidates trying to win your vote, and they're taking money from these pharmaceutical companies and these super PACs.
Right. No, they absolutely do. And I'm not taking any money. Nobody's offering me any money. And if I was one of them, I wouldn't be taking any money from them either. I think it's, I mean, if I was Jack Ciattarelli, I wouldn't be taking money, but then, I guess I wouldn't be Jack Ciattarelli. Because to me, it's really not about, to me, this is not about winning, right? Winning for the sake of winning, because what is all that shows you, right? That, okay, let's say one of them does win, and what are they going to do? They're going to have policies that will benefit their donors, right? They're big donors with lots of money. They're not going to benefit the regular people. I think that's the bottom line in all of this, right? That both of them are taking money from those large corporations. And how does anyone really think that once elected, they'll try to have policies that will actually help the people of the state of New Jersey? I don't think so. Look where they're getting all of their money. So this is, to me, that just shows what they're all about. And I don't support taking money from large corporations. Like I said, if somebody offered me the money and I was in one of their positions, I wouldn't take it, because I don't believe in favoring, like I said, any large corporations. And Lana, you're absolutely right about what they've done for years, getting people hooked up on drugs with no accountability. And I know there have been major investigations into this, and there have been even movies and series on Netflix done about that. It's really horrible that they just, all they care about it was profit. But that was because, again, they were in bed with the government. I mean, that's what ended up happening, because the politicians were taking money from the these pharmaceutical companies, and that's why all of this was allowed to happen. It's very sad because so many people have died as a result of this. So I agree with that part, but it's also true that the other two people, right? They're taking money from the same groups. So yeah.
Yeah, and more hypocrisy from the both of them, Mikey Sherrill and Jack, is that, well, particularly Mikey Sherrill, she has said a couple of times, if I remember correctly, something to the effect of, we need to help the growing famine in Palestine, or this and that, we need to send aid, but then they're both getting money from the Israeli lobby. And in her time in Congress, I believe she voted no on eliminating 500 million or whatever it was for the Iron Dome. So like they literally will say one thing and do another, and we just keep voting these people in, and it's very frustrating. And I know that people kind of look at it, libertarians, and they say you never win, and they never really look into why we don't win. It's not because of the people who are running, and it's not because our solutions don't work, or that we don't have solutions, or we don't have viable solutions. It's these same people keep lying to you. And most libertarians, I'm not going to say all of them, because I've met some libertarians that kind of suck or whatever, or bad people, but generally the libertarian position is to be principled and not lie to you and say exactly what you're going to do and then do it. And our aim is to remove power from the state, from the government. And the current people in power don't want that. Of course, they want to keep accumulating power and money. So they make it difficult for us to participate in the election process, the democratic electoral process. So it's just incredibly frustrating, but I don't know. You're here and I'm here, and I'm going to keep running for office. And when people figure it out, I'll be here, and you can vote for me then.
No, I totally agree, and of course, Lana, and basically this would also reduce the power of corporations, right? Because they're not going to be depending on the state for the state sending our tax dollars to corporations. I mean, this is what benefits them. The reason why these corporations have the power that they have is because we have the state, right? Whether the federal government, the state government, using our tax dollars to benefit them, and this is that's absolutely horrific. I mean, this is so they give them campaign donations, and as a result, once they're in power, they have policies that benefit them. And then people talk about us libertarians. So it's like, well, you just want the corporations to have more power. No, the way to reduce the power of corporations is to stop the state, right, benefiting them, right? Stop the state giving them favorable treatment. Because this is basically corruption, right? They give money to candidates, they get elected, and they pass legislation that benefits them. They give them favorable treatment, like with taxes and everything, or they give them corporate welfare. Like this has to stop. That's why they have all this power. I mean, I'm totally against having monopolies. I mean, monopolies, but I mean, to a large extent, they are the creation of the state because they work. A lot of these monopolies, they work under the protection of the government. Okay, this is what I was talking about my support for having people choices when it comes to energy. Like we have a state protected monopolies when it comes to energy, right? The state only allows certain companies to operate. So that's a monopoly right there. There's a limit to what people can choose, and if the state wasn't protecting them, right, there would be more choices for people, and the energy prices would fall down. That's the idea, and it's not happening because of the state monopoly. So I don't want the state government, the federal government, any type of government to give protection to any company, to any corporation. It shouldn't be happening, right? So and I think if the state, federal or local government wasn't protecting these companies from competition, then you wouldn't be having the high prices that people are complaining about, and the lack of competition. So I think that my position always has been that I'm definitely against having monopolies, but a lot of these cases, monopolies are being protected by the government, by the state. So.
Yeah, and we talk about this specific thing a lot, but probably every day I bring it up, and I'm going to keep bringing it up. Is that especially since we're talking about essentially bribes and being in the pocket of, you know, these large corporations and lobbies. But candidates are only allowed, well, especially for governor, you're only allowed to participate in the debates if you raise $500,000. So basically, that's rewarding taking bribes, essentially, because raising $500,000, I don't want to say the right way, but would be a lot of work, especially if you're not already corrupt, especially if you're not already in the pocket of these large corporations. So they're basically to me, that's rewarding corruption, is by only allowing gubernatorial candidates to participate in the debates if they're allowed to, or if they've reached $500,000 in donations. And on top of that, if you reach the $500,000, you get publicly funded matching funds, which means now you're taking taxpayer money to fund campaigns. So the Republicans and Democrats are not only corrupt in the sense that they're taking all this money from corporations and lobbies that are going to expect you or them to vote in their favor for certain legislation for that money, but also they're specifically preventing people who aren't taking that money from participating in debates, so that they just keep creating a situation in which they're the only ones in power over and over and over again. And they're the only ones who get a voice, and they're the only ones that are allowed to have any sort of platform. And it's infuriating, one, because it's a huge barrier to third party and independent candidates. But also because, like, this stuff affects me too. I live in New Jersey. So, you know, whether I would love for you to be the first libertarian governor in New Jersey, but if Jack or Mikey wins, like, none of us are going to win. It's going to be bad either way. And I said the same thing with the presidential election. Everyone was like, well, which one's better? You know, if Chase Oliver wasn't on the ballot, which one would you pick? Neither, because it doesn't matter who wins. I won't win. You won't win. We will not win. It doesn't matter who's in power. That's why you need to start looking at other candidates, looking at other options and other avenues. When we were at the Sussex County Fair, somebody stopped by. I forget the organization she was with, but basically the organization, their sole purpose is to get people to vote basically for anyone except for the two major parties. Now, I'm not sure I support that sort of militant reaction to this problem. Just vote for anyone. It doesn't matter, as long as they're not a Republican or Democrat. I do think that you need to do your research and pick someone that you actually support. But I do think that breaking this duopoly system is something that we all need to work together on.
No, I absolutely agree with you, Lana. Thank you for that. Yes, I mean, people should have just more choices in general. And you're right. I mean, people should think about it in terms of, like, will my life get better? Because people keep voting Republican, they vote Democrat, and they keep voting one or the other. And, you know, one may feel kind of good about that, for sure. But the question is, you know, does your life get better as a result? And, you know, I don't think that people, it's more, I mean, I understand that it's for a number of people that they just want to vote for their team. It's my team. Like, I support my team in sports, and I get that. But yeah, ultimately the question is your life getting better? Because if your life is getting worse, then why does it make sense to keep voting for, you know, that one party? Like, if you're voting Republican and you think that your life is getting worse, like, why, you know, vote Republican? But then, you know, you have Democrats in power. So you have had Republicans and Democrats in New Jersey as governors. But has life gotten better? Well, certainly the cost of living has got more expensive, right? The cost of living has increased. More people have left New Jersey. The property taxes have increased. Like, what, you know, and, so if your life isn't getting better, right, then maybe it's time to try something else. One of the things that I think that, and I mentioned this before, that some people may take for granted, is that a number of the ideas that have been have become the reality have originally been proposed by people running outside of the two-party system. So if you want things to change, right, if you want your vote to matter, if you want things to get better, and maybe voting for the people and the ideas that have gotten us to the place where we're at is not the best choice. Maybe it's time to vote for something different, right? because you know exactly what you're going to get by voting the other way, right? We've had Republican Democratic governors before. Life hasn't gotten better. The cost of living has increased. More people have left New Jersey. So why not try something different? Why not try something better? Because you know exactly what you're going to get with the other two choices.
Yes, absolutely. And it's something that you and I know I've said it every single day. I'm sure you say it to people every single day. And it's to vote for something, not against something. So we only have a few minutes left. So let's talk about some upcoming events for our campaigns. If you want to go first.
Yes. So I'm planning to be in Morris County this Boonton this Friday. And I'm also planning to be, again, we're all visiting the immigrant-owned restaurants. That is the plan. It will be on my website, of course. But the idea is to, so it's going to be on Friday evening. I'm going to be in Boonton. Right? You can check out more of the details on my website. And then on Saturday and Sunday, I have other events planned. So there will be other events. I will be in Boonton, Uzbekistan restaurant at 7 p.m. Saturday, 1 p.m. I'm going to be at Shalal restaurant, which is in Clifton, New Jersey, at 6 p.m. This Saturday, I'll be at the Shorty Bread House in Fair Lawn, and then on Sunday at 1 p.m. I will be at the Hills of Herat restaurant at 1 p.m. on Sunday in Baskin Ridge. So that is my plan for in terms of visiting the immigrant-owned restaurants for the rest of the week.
Thank you. And then I'm going to be doing some events in my district for the rest of the month up until the campaign. I'm sorry, up until Election Day. And Morris County is, well, like a portion of Morris County is in my district. Although I think you said Booton, like Booton.
Yeah, that's not in your district.
Booton is District 11, but I will be there anyway. So if you're around that area and would like to meet me as well as Vic, I will be there. We're both looking for volunteers. We already have, a nice group of people that are handing out flyers and yard signs. And if you want a yard sign, we have, especially for Vic, pickup points in different counties. I will deliver yard signs to you personally. If you want a yard sign for me, just go to our websites. And we also, as a party, are starting to recruit candidates. So if you're interested in running for office with the Libertarian Party, go to njlp.org. They'll have instructions there on how to do it, who to contact. And unless you have anything else, Vic, we will see everybody tomorrow night at 6:30.
No, that would be all for me, Lana. And again, please check out my website at vicforliberty.com. And that's Vic number 4 liberty.com. And of course, check out Lana Leguia's website. She's running for state assembly at lanaleguia.com. And of course, Dustin Maggard's campaign at DustinForLiberty.com. That's Dustin number 4 Liberty.com. Again, we're looking for volunteers. We're looking for, certainly if you'd like to donate, promise to spread that message of liberty to the people throughout the state. And looking forward to seeing you all. Again, check out my website where I will be this weekend. Feel free to meet me. I'm open to any questions, any comments. And if you'd like to meet me, you'd like a sign, yes, please feel free to contact us and meet me and in person this weekend. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you and good night.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.